Or think about the Sahel region, one of the poorest, yes, yet fastest growing demographically. Russia is both influencing and benefiting from the crisis. This is of direct concern for Europe, for our security and our prosperity. So we need to show the same unity of purpose towards Africa as we have shown towards Ukraine. This is a must.
There is a silence in Europe that's louder than bombs, a fear hidden behind diplomatic smiles, and a panic echoing through the marble halls of Brussels. That fear has a name, Burkina Faso, and that panic has a face, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. For decades, Europe saw Africa as a chessboard, a place to extract, to manipulate, to divide, and to dominate. But now, Africa is flipping the board. Burkina Faso is rising, and the European Union is terrified. After sending delegation after delegation, offering partnerships, security cooperation, and strategic dialogue, they have realized something shocking. Burkina Faso no longer wants them. No more neocolonialism. No more backdoor deals. No more European boots in African soil. And now, Europe is changing tactics, from bribes to branding, from weapons to words, from open control to psychological warfare. But beneath all their polished speeches and media campaigns, there's one raw truth they can't hide. They're no longer in control of Burkina Faso's natural resources, and that's what's truly keeping them up at night. Today, we expose the truth behind the EU's desperation, and why their carefully crafted speeches hide a deep fear that Africa is awake, and the age of exploitation is over. The real reason Europe can't let go. To understand this story, forget the headlines, forget the talk of terrorism, instability, and global cooperation. These are not the real reasons Europe wants Burkina Faso back under its wing. The truth is much simpler. Resources, gold, zinc, manganese, rare earth metals, uranium. Burkina Faso, though small, sits on an absolute treasure chest of natural wealth. And for years, European companies, mostly French, profited enormously, while Burkinabe citizens lived in poverty. The mines were dug with foreign machines, protected by foreign mercenaries, and the profits wired to foreign banks. But then came Captain Ibrahim Traoré, young, bold, unapologetic, and above all, committed to restoring sovereignty. In months, he revoked foreign mining contracts. He kicked out exploitative companies. He said no to the IMF, no to the French military, and no to EU interference. Suddenly, Europe found itself cut off. And that wasn't just inconvenient. It was catastrophic to their long-standing grip over West Africa. The speech that exposed everything. Recently, the President of the European Commission delivered a speech for EU parliamentarians. At first glance, it seemed routine, but a closer listen reveals the anxiety behind her words. Or think about the Sahel region, one of the poorest yet fastest growing demographically. Notice the framing. They don't speak of African nations with dignity. They speak of opportunity, economic, strategic, and demographic. Then she says, Russia is both influencing and benefiting from the crisis. Ah, the scapegoat. Europe cannot admit that its influence is declining because Africans are choosing sovereignty. So, they blame Russia, as if Africans can't think or decide for themselves. This is of direct concern for Europe, for our security and our prosperity. There it is. Not Africa's prosperity, Europe's prosperity. It has always been about how Africa can serve Europe, not the other way around. We need to develop a mutually beneficial partnership. Translation: we want back in, but under a new name. We want to lead efforts to make the rules-based order fairer. Now they want to fix the global system? Only now that Africa is leaving the table. Europe doesn't fear coups. It fears losing control. It fears a future where African nations set their own prices, build their own infrastructure, and defend their own interests without the West. Captain Traoré isn't just leading a country. He's lighting a fire across the continent. He speaks plainly. He calls out imperialism. He openly questions institutions like the UN, ECOWAS, and the World Bank. And he makes no apology for reclaiming Burkina Faso's natural wealth for Burkinabe people. Under his leadership, foreign military bases are being dismantled. Gold revenue is staying inside the country. Agricultural and irrigation megaprojects are underway. Young Burkinabe are being trained as engineers, scientists, and protectors of their land. This is not what Europe was prepared for. They had planned for compliant leaders, elites who obey orders in exchange for handshakes and hotel conferences. But Traoré changed the script. And that's why the EU is so desperate to re-engage. They see what's coming, a domino effect. If Burkina Faso succeeds, others will follow. Mali, Niger, Guinea. Even citizens in Ghana, Senegal, and Nigeria are now asking questions they never dared ask before. Questions like, why are our resources in foreign hands? Why do we still depend on the West for food and fuel? And why do we obey leaders who serve foreign powers more than their own people? This is the true fear of the EU, that Africa is waking up. And once awake, it cannot be silenced. The double standards of Europe. The same Europe that urges democracy supports monarchs and dictators, so long as they sign favorable contracts. The same Europe that condemns coups supported illegal invasions, assassinations, and regime changes when it suited their interests. The same Europe that lectures Africa on human rights turns a blind eye when African protesters are killed by police trained with Western money. So when the EU president says, we must work with legitimate governments, she really means governments we can control. Because for them, legitimacy is not about the will of the people. It's about compliance. Let us be clear. No African country owes its loyalty to Brussels. No African child should starve so a European company can hit quarterly profits. And no African leader should bow to a system that sees the continent as a resource mine and nothing more. Europe loves to cry foul when African nations turn to Russia or China, but they never ask why. Why are Africans seeking new partnerships? Why are they refusing Western military bases? Why are they rejecting loans with colonial strings attached? Because for once, Africa is choosing. Not being chosen, not being forced, but choosing. And yes, Africa will work with Russia. It will work with China. It will work with Latin America, Asia, and with itself, on its own terms. Europe had decades, centuries, to build a real partnership, but instead, it built dependency. And now, as Africa pivots, they cry betrayal. But Africa owes Europe nothing. In her speech, the EU president introduced the Global Gateway, a shiny new name for their next move. She says it is more transparent, more sustainable, more economically attractive. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because under the surface, it's just another strategy to get back in. This time, wearing new clothes. They know they can no longer control African leaders with guns. So now they try with grants, with smiles, with PR campaigns. But Africans are not fooled. They know that transparency is nothing without justice, that sustainability is a lie if it only sustains European interests, and that economic attractiveness means nothing if the wealth still leaves the continent. Let Europe plan. Let them strategize. Let them hold summits and write reports. because Africa is no longer listening to instructions. Africa is speaking now. Africa is leading now. And Burkina Faso is the spark. A land that was once dismissed is now the epicenter of a continental awakening. Its leader, young and defiant, is carving a new path, not just for Burkina Faso, but for Africa itself. Europe may try everything: economic threats, diplomatic pressure, media manipulation, but it won't work, because this is no longer about alliances. It's about liberation. No speech, no summit, no strategy can stop what's coming. The African people have risen. The exploitation chapter is closing, and a new story is being written by Africans for Africans. Let Europe hear this clearly. Burkina Faso is not coming back, and Africa is not backing down. The age of silence is over. The era of submission is dead. This is the dawn of African power, and no one, no union, no empire can stop it. Africans are not fooled. They know that transparency is nothing without justice, that sustainability is a lie if it only sustains European interests, and that economic attractiveness means nothing if the wealth still leaves the continent. Let Europe plan. Let them strategize. Let them hold summits and write reports, because Africa is no longer listening to instructions. Africa is speaking now. Africa is leading now. And Burkina Faso is the spark. A land that was once dismissed is now the epicenter of a continental awakening. Its leader, young and defiant, is carving a new path, not just for Burkina Faso, but for Africa itself. Europe may try everything: economic threats, diplomatic pressure, media manipulation, but it won't work, because this is no longer about alliances. It's about liberation. No speech, no summit, no strategy can stop what's coming. The African people have risen. The exploitation chapter is closing, and a new story is being written by Africans for Africans. Let Europe hear this clearly. Burkina Faso is not coming back, and Africa is not backing down. The age of silence is over. The era of submission is dead. This is the dawn of African power, and no one, no union, no empire can stop it.